All right, peace. Shalom, shalom. First and foremost, giving honor and praise to the God of Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov. Giving double honors to 7130 South Chicago that taught me this truth. And giving double honors to all the brothers and sisters that the Creator has awoken in these last days. With that being said, peace and shalom. All right, brothers and sisters, I want to go into a discussion, that I was listening to by an individual by the name of Marquett. He has a channel, a YouTube page called The Saint. And, I was listening to him and he was talking about, Malcolm X. And he was talking about Malcolm X in a very disparaging way. And, what's wrong with the black community is that the black community doesn't really respect. Let me rephrase this. What's wrong with the black community is that we can't identify agents a lot of times when we see them. See, a lot of times we would think that an agent is a person that look different from us, and that's absolutely true. But we got to understand that the so-called white man was able to infiltrate black movements is because they will put people, they started to hire people that look just like those individuals. And that's not just in the black community, that's all over. See? So, say if you got a Russian person, say if you want to infiltrate Putin, you're not going to use a German or a Polish person to infiltrate Putin. You have to use a Russian. So it's the same thing with so-called black people. The only reason why they started to hire black people for the FBI is because, they wanted to infiltrate certain so-called black movements. And why am I saying this? You have a lot of people that are agents willfully. What I mean by that, you got a lot of people that's working for the FBI or the government, and you got people that willfully show their allegiance to so-called white people or this country by degrading and disrespecting people that paved the way for individuals like this to have a board in their back, whether they understand it or not. So I was listening to the brother, and he was talking about a lot of things, about Malcolm X. I wish I had my notes, but I can kind of remember a lot of stuff that he was saying. And one of the things that he was talking about, because, he has a love affair for Elijah Muhammad. And I don't mean that like he's a homosexual or nothing like that. I'm just saying that he respects a lot of the things that Elijah Muhammad stood for, when he created, quote unquote, the movement, which is the NOI, that's called the Nation of Islam, right? He agrees with, some of the things that Elijah did in that movement, right? And his issue with Malcolm X is that he felt as though as Malcolm X wasn't appreciative of a man like that would basically grab him from the prison system and clean him up and then put him in his organization. So he called Malcolm X a traitor. He said that Malcolm X was a traitor and that he destroyed the black movement. And brothers and sisters, that's entirely not true. In actuality, brothers and sisters, we're gonna go over some things. We're gonna go over some history. Like he said, everything that he said was true, right? This is all uh, this is all truth, and you know he's going to say his truth, and I'm going to say my truth, right? And it's up to the people to acknowledge the truth that I'm saying, right? So the first thing we have to look at the situation when he said that Malcolm X was a traitor and he destroyed the black movement, right? And like I said before, that is entirely not true, right? In actuality, Elijah Muhammad was a traitor. Well, I wouldn't necessarily say a traitor. He destroyed the black movement, and how did he destroy it? Because one of the things that Elijah Muhammad failed to do was that he failed to live up to the expectations that he will put on other people. Well, what do you mean by that, Yashua? What I'm saying is that my research, right, because I have the book called The Judas Factor. I got memoirs with Malcolm X, and I've listened to a lot of people that came up out of the NOI that talked about a lot of first-hand accounts on what they was dealing with when they was in the Nation of Islam, right? So one of the things that I say that he destroyed a black movement is because, or the black movement was destined to fail. I would say that the NOI was destined to fail is because of this situation here. Let's come out of here. Let's go into this situation, right? I don't want to show you no personal information, but let's look at something, right? Because he said that Malcolm X destroyed, quote unquote, the black movement, right? So let's look at something. I want to find something, or I might have to repost it. Okay, let's look at this, right? See if it's gonna start to move. Okay. The Nation of Islam, because one of the things somebody asked him was the Nation of Islam a cult. He said no. He said because most cults, the leader, he would do some weighed out stuff like messing with little girls and little boys and things of this nature. And I can agree to a certain extent, like he made a quick mention of Jim Jones, because Jim Jones persuaded all these people to move to, I think, Guyana. I think they was living in Guyana, and they was all drinking this Kool-Aid, and they end up dying, And I know a person, her name was Joy, she was around during that time. She wasn't a part of Jim Jones' organization. I think she was young at the time, but she remembered because she's from Guyana. But that's neither here nor there. So he said that the Nation of Islam is not a cult and stuff like that. And I'm saying that it is a cult is because we're going to read the article about an individual by the name of Yaqub. Yaqub is basically he's a traitor to quote unquote the tribe of Shabazz. But what I want to do is I want to I want to start here because that's the basis of the information that we're gonna go over, right? So he said that the Nation of Islam is not a cult and things of this nature, and he also said that Elijah Muhammad sleeping with underage girls is not true. Now, you have a lot of people that was in the Nation of Islam that said that that is true, that he was doing that. And see, what we have to understand that the times that we live in today is totally different from the times that they was living in back then. See, Elijah Muhammad was born in the 1800s. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, it was rare. It was a rare thing that man that was like in their 20s, they would deal with teenage women. They would marry teenage women. So he was born in that era. So it's a strong possibility that he could have been doing those things is because the ideology back then was that when you grab a young woman, you have to get her when she's a teenager. It's because and not only was it done in the 1800s in the mid 1900s, that practice have been going on for centuries. See, it has been going on for centuries. And believe it or not, brothers and sisters, it goes on even to this day. And one of the reasons why they mess with younger women is because they want to be able to bear children with younger women. They feel like a woman in her 30s, or her 40s, and her 50s, they feel like that is a older age to marry a woman to settle down and have multiple kids. So we have to look at that situation because he got 6 of those women pregnant. I think he was messing with 6 women, right? But before we go into that, let's go into this because that movement was always destined to fail because of their ideology. Let's look at this. It says, according to the story, at the start of human history, a variety of types of black people inhabited the moon. When a black god scientist became frustrated that all those living on the moon did not speak one language, right? He blew up the moon. Now, I see Marquett. He he made disparaging remarks about the Bible, right? Because towards the end of his commentary, he started talking about quote unquote the black Hebrew Israelites, right? And all this type of stuff because I believe that an Israelite brother left a comment on his timeline when he was going live. So he kind of bit the guy's head off, and the guy had to tell him like, "Hey man, I'm just commenting off of what you saying." So he kind of apologized, but he still was kind of ragging on that brother because he has an issue with Israelite the Israelite community just as well. And we're going to go into that situation also. But, um, you know, he was talking about the Bible as a white man's book. But he don't question this. So when he say that, say what you want to say about the Bible, but we can go to Jerusalem right now. See, we can go to Egypt right now. This stuff that's in this article that is being displayed about the history of the tribe of Shabazz, there's no history, there's no archaeology that substantiate what they talking about. And this is what shows you that this is a cult. See, this is a cult. Is because from a historical standpoint of view, just like they say, well, where's the characters in the Bible? Well, where's the characters here? See, where's the characters here? Where can we see any archaeology that substantiate what's going on in this article? I'm going to continue to read. It says, a piece of this destroyed moon became the earth, which was then populated by a community of surviving, morally righteous people, right? Some of whom settled in the city of Mecca. Yaqub was born a short distance outside the city. So, okay, so they blew up the moon and then they came over here to Earth. So Yaqub was born a short distance from the city of Mecca. So he's born on Earth, right? But where's the, just like they always say, where's Abraham and all these people? Where's Yaqub? Where is the archaeology saying that you had the tribe of Shabazz over there in Mecca? But the brother wanted to sit up here and talk about how honorable and respectful and how great of a man because he read Message to the Black Man. Off of this article here, brother, Elijah Muhammad is not an honorable man. Because the concept of a person that's honorable, that means that he's going to tell the truth, right? He's going to tell the truth. He's a man of integrity. He's a man of respect. But the only thing that Marquett is really looking at is the fact that he brought business to the black community. But he's no different than T.D. Jakes. He's no different than Joel Osteen and all of these big-time preachers that have made millions of dollars off of the brainwashing of their own people. So say whatever you want to say about Hebrew Israelites, Christians, whatever black organization that people are a part of. Why are we not questioning what this man is talking about? It's because there's no recorded history other than something that they made up themselves that talk about how these people came from another planet and they started to intermingle with quote-unquote Africans over there in the northeastern part of Africa, brothers and sisters. He's not questioning this. But he called Malcom X an egotistical maniac, that he was not a good speaker, he was not a good organizer, and we're going to go into that, see? And he talks about, he made it a reference or a purpose to keep calling Elijah Muhammad the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. But let's look at the because we're gonna go back into that article, because that is a lot of meat on that bone, right? But let's look up the word honorable, right? And in the dictionary. So it says honorable, worthy of respect, reverence, respectable, also signifying or rendering distinction or respect, ensuring good um, repute or honor, right? Because that's the etymology dictionary. So when we looking at this article, brothers, and don't say that this is not true, is because I've heard what's his name? Um, what is my brother name? Melchizedek Supreme Sabras Allah. He is one of the members that Malcolm X visited in prison. He's the one that Malcolm X brought into the truth. Melchizedek Supreme Sabras Allah, right? And he believes in this stuff. See, he teach people that every 30 or 40 or 100 years that a spaceship comes to Earth and go to China and refuel. This is what he said out of his own mouth. So why are these people reverenced as honorable people when they will deliberately sit up here and lie to the people and come up with this nonsense? But I don't even fault Melchizedek. I fault Elijah and Fard Muhammad is because they're the ones that created this. They're the ones that created this. And mind you, they came out of the understanding of the Moorish Science Temple, brothers and sisters. And also is record up under Dr. Ben Yakanan. He said that Elijah Muhammad was a part of the Marcus Garvey movement also, right? So, when we looking at this is not a man of integrity and honor. It's because he's going to create a religion. He's going to create an ideology because, they don't want to be a Christian. They don't want to be a Jew. They don't want to be in Islam, they're not practicing traditional Islam. They created their own form of Islam, the 120 lessons and all that type of stuff. This is something, or supreme mathematics. The Nation of Islam is nothing but a Masonic lodge organization. That's all it is. So when you start to create an ideology or a history that's based upon lies and deceit, you got to understand that these people are not honorable men. They're not men of integrity. I don't care how many members they got, how much money they have, they don't have integrity. They're not people of respect. So let's look at this. Yaqub was born a short distance outside the city and was among the third of original black people who was discontented with life in this society. Right? Check this out. A member of the Meccan branch of the tribe of Shabazz, Yaqub acquired the nickname Big Head because of his unusual large head and arrogance, right? So this this is supposed to be a photo that was sketched by Malachi Z. York, which was a person that was I believe that he had some type of history with the Nation of Islam, because eventually he creates his own movement, which is what? The Nuwaubian Nation. See, he created the Nuwaubians, but before he became a Nuwaubian, he was he he was a a Islamic Hebrew. See, he went by that title, and then I think he created what you would call the Ansar community. I believe he created that also, but he has roots with the NOI. So he created a sketch of quote unquote Yaqub. It's because of the ideology and the description that the Nation of Islam uh, they betrayed this man as, right? So let's look at something. Let's look up the tribe of Shabazz. It says, um, the tribe of Shabazz was, according to the Nation of Islam, an ancient black nation that migrated into Central Africa. Now, what we got to understand is, where did they come from? They came from another planet. This is what he was teaching to his congregation, and this is what Farrakhan and all these different other temples teach to the people. So if you're going to criticize, and then you're talking about Malcolm X as a person, but you're not going to criticize Elijah Muhammad for creating a doctrine. He's not even creating this. This is what Fard Muhammad created. Because to my research, him and Fard came up out of the Moorish Science Temple. And the Moorish Science Temple, to my understanding, they believe in a certain form of this situation too. See, they believe in UFOs and stuff like that. And I'm not saying that it's not other people out here, because I'm not going to say that. But what I'm saying is that their ideology and their thought pattern, from my research, comes out of the the Moorish Science Temple of America. See? So let's look at this. It says that the concept is found primarily in the writings of Wallace Fard Muhammad, right? Or Wallace D. It says Elijah Muhammad, according to the autobiography of Malcolm X, all the races except the white race are descended of the tribe of Shabazz. So there's another thing that we having an issue with. You said he's the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, but this is not a man of honor. How he gonna teach somebody this? He's teaching people that all the races except the white race comes from the tribe of Shabazz. That is not true, brothers and sisters. You know, you can hate the Bible all you want, but the human family comes from the children of Shem, Ham, and Japheth. It's because the land of the land of Ham is basically in the Bible. It's because the term Ham in Hebrew is Kim, and what we would call today Kemet, because they looked at themselves, the quote-unquote Egyptians. We know that the term Egypt is a Greek term, but they looked at themselves as masters of all the arts of astrology and all this type of stuff, because the term Kim or Kemet means what? Chemistry. See? But there's no archaeology that's going to talk about, quote-unquote, the tribe of Shabazz. But let's look at this. It says, according to the Nation of Islam, the tribe of Shabazz was the only survivor of 13 tribes that lived on Earth 66 trillion years ago, after a rogue scientist blew up the planet, splitting off the moon The other tribes perished. The tribe of Shabazz relocated to the rich Nile Valley of Egypt, and then to the present seat of the Islamic holy city of Mecca in Arabia. This is all lies, brothers. There's no such thing as a tribe of Shabazz. It was a technological advanced society, but one faction was led by Shabazz himself into previously unoccupied areas of Central Africa because he wanted them to be hardened. There they evolved Negroid features. So these because if they living on the moon, they're not human. See, they're not human. They're living on the moon. They a rogue scientist. They was all technically advanced scientists. One rogue scientist, he shoots, he blows up the moon. They come over here to Earth, and then they start to intermingle with the black people, right? But check what Malcolm X said, because look, Malcolm X, as great as this brother was, Malcolm X was a great pioneer for our people in terms of advancement of us being able to get certain things in this country. But Malcolm X was brainwashed. See, he was brainwashed. And we're going to show the brainwashing in his statement that he made in 1962. It says he wanted to. This is Malcolm X. This is them brain. He got brainwashed while he was in prison. See, he comes out of prison in 1952, I believe. Let's look at this. It says he wanted people to undergo a form of life that will make them tough and hard. See, he's talking about the people of the tribe of Shabazz. And other scientists wouldn't agree with him. So this scientist named Shabazz took his family and wandered down into the jungles of Africa. Prior to that time, no one lived in the jungles. Our people were soft. They were black, but they were soft and delicate, fine. They had straight hair. And you know, even to this day, Farrakhan and them teach that. He teaches that our people originally had coarse hair. See, they had black, straight hair. This is why a lot of them brothers, when they dress nice, they wear nice suits, but you got to check their hair. Their hair, they try to look like they from somebody from the Middle East because of what? Because of this article. See? This article. And I remember a speech that Farrakhan gave. He said that it's basically a sin to have nappy hair. So what is this? These are so-called Negroes that hate themselves, y'all. See? They hate themselves. They hate their hair. And why is this? Because of what? The curses of Deuteronomy. See, we hate ourselves. Let's look at this. It says, right here on this earth, you find some of them look like that today. They are black as night, but their hair is like silk. And originally, all our people had that kind of hair. But this scientist took his family into the jungles of Africa and living in the open, living a jungle life, eating all kinds of fruit. Eating all kinds of food had an effect on the appearance of our people. Actually living in the rough climate, our hair became stiff like it is now. This is what Malcolm X said. This is one of his speech that he did in 1962. It says a scientist named Yaqub was a member of the Meccan branch of tribes, and according to Fard, was the creator of the white race. Now, people challenge the Nation of Islam because they say Fard Muhammad was an Arab, which I think that he was. But they're going to turn around and say that his mama was white and that his father was a so-called black man. See? But let's say that it was true. Ain't nothing wrong with that, right? But his father is not from another planet. See, his father didn't come from the moon. His father, if his father is a so-called black man, his father was living over there probably in Africa somewhere. But a lot of people say that Fard Muhammad was an Arab, right? It says, actually living, I misread. It says, according to Fard, was the creator of the white race, the tribe of Shabazz is said to have reached its peak in the year 4085 BC, right? So now the tribe of Shabazz, they was before the coming of the Messiah. See, brothers and sisters, what we gotta understand, I gotta read the scripture on this, man. Let's look at something, because we building right now. Let's turn to Matthew, the 24th chapter, right? Let's look at Matthew, the 24th chapter. 1 second. Yeah, Matthew's 27. 1 second, let me see. Let's look at something. Matthew 24 and 4. And Yahshua answered and said unto them, take heed that no man deceive you. And see, our people have been deceived, brothers and sisters. And I get it. The reason why they didn't want to, see, because they created their own thing is because see, they didn't want to be a part of the Christian movement at that time, brothers and sisters. They didn't want to be a part of that because the Caucasian Christians, they was killing black folks. So the concept of the Nation of Islam was a movement, an ideology that was birthed out of racism. See? They would rather create a Marvel superhero than join the Christian church. They would rather create a Marvel or a DC comic superhero than become a part of Islam, which they are, but they created their own form of Islam. Their form of Islam is not traditional Islam. So how is Elijah Muhammad a great man? And I'm not saying that to be disrespectful, right? But what I'm saying is that that's not a man of an honor and integrity, see? That you will create something like this and you will brainwash the people. This is an organization, and look, when they created this situation, it has forms of what? Masonic roots in the organization, brothers and sisters. So it says, the 11th verse, and many false prophets shall rise and deceive many. This is what's going on with our people today. So he wants to criticize Malcom X and talk about how stupid he was and he destroyed the black movement. I'm showing you a person that helped Fard Muhammad, because Fard Muhammad was supposed to be like a god, and Elijah was his messenger. Elijah had to get the information for 3.5 years, and mysteriously, Fire Muhammad, he leaves the scene because his work was done, right? But when you go into that history, that's not true, brothers and sisters. It's because, to my knowledge, he was kicked out of the. He had the government forced him out. It's because they say that he was doing a lot of illegal activity. But irregardless of what he was doing, if you go back into this, I'm gonna find the article. I'm gonna find the video. But I think it was one of Muhammad Ali's daughters. She said that her father introduced her to a person. I think he was going by another name, but her father, I think that was it was Muhammad Ali. He told her that was Fard Muhammad. So if that was Fard Muhammad, he had been coming back and forth from his country where he was from and to the U.S. back and forth. Or he may have been living in another state. And they taking care of him, but they got the people believing that this man, he mysteriously leave the scene and don't nobody know where he at, but he done left this man with all these lessons for 3.5 years. And a lot of that stuff, that wordplay, they steal certain things from the Bible and other histories and stuff like that, and they create their own thing, right? But let's continue. Let's go back. Okay. At the age of 6, he discovered the law of attraction and repulsion by playing with magnets made of steel. He connected this to the rule of human attraction. The unlike people would manipulate the original like people. By the age of 18, he had finished his education and had learned everything that Mecca universities had to teach him. But if he went to the Mecca universities over there in Mecca, where's his history at? Where's his history? So what is this? This is Elijah Muhammad being brain. Look, him and Fard Muhammad came out of the Moore Science Temple, according to a lot of people's research. They was a part of that movement. And I believe so is because I think the women's group, like the NOI, I think the women's group is called the MMST or something like that. They got that from the Moore Science Temple. So that's what I'm saying. A lot of the stuff that Elijah Muhammad was doing, him and Fard Muhammad, they got that from the Moore Science Temple, is because according to research, they was a part of the Moore Science Temple. But they don't want to really associate themselves with the Moore Science Temple, is because you had a lot of rumblings in the Moore Science Temple, and then out of nowhere, Noble Drew Ali got killed amongst his own members. See? So Marquett is not going to tell that story. See, he's not going to tell that story. So what is he doing? He's brainwashing people also. Let's look at this. It says he discovered that the original black man contained both a black germ and a brown germ. Farrakhan still preached that today. With the brown being the recessive one, believed that if he could separate them by grafting, he could graft the brown germ into a white germ. They preach that today, brothers and sisters. The Caucasian comes out of the so-called black man. See? The original white man is the so-called black man, brothers and sisters. Believe it or not. This insight led to a plan to create a new people who, using tricks and lies, could rule the original black man and destroy him. Now, let's check this out, right? Where did they kind of get this story from? They kind of got this story from the story that was established in the story that's called, it's in the Mormons story. The Mormons, the Latter-day Saints, against the Lamanites, against, I forgot what it was, because it was two tribes. I know one of them was the Lamanites, and they was going against another tribe. Now, one of the tribes was considered the holy blessed of the Creator. So one of the tribes started going against the other tribes, and the Creator turned them black. They turned them black because the Mormons, they in their inception, they was a racist organization. They had to change up on a lot of their stuff. But if you go get their original book, I have it. I think it's the 5th chapter. No, it's the 5th book, and I think it's the 20th some chapter, something like that. I forget, but I had it marked. It tells you that either the Lamanites or the other tribes, the Creator turned their skin black. Now, where did they get that from? They got that from the Bible. That's where they got it from. All these people that sit around here and talk about the Bible, they steal certain stories from the Bible, right? So when we start talking about the white germ and the brown germ, right? And Yaqub being he's a traitor to the Shabazz people, they getting that stuff from where? They getting it from the Book of Mormons, and in retrospect, they get certain stuff from the Bible. This is not history. This is what you would call cult activity, because you got people that will create an ideology and people will follow it. This is a concept of a cult just as well. So Marquett, when he made the statement and said that Elijah Muhammad is not the Nation of Islam was not a cult, he's a liar. See, he's a liar. He attracted he said he attracted a following but caused trouble, leading the Meccan authorities to exile him 59,999 followers. They then went to an isle in the Aegean Sea called Pelon, right? And you know, like the Nation of Gods and Earth, no, the 5 percenters. You know, they name a lot of their neighborhoods in New York after a lot of the stories dealing with Yaqub and them, because they got a neighbor. They named some of their neighborhoods in New York, like they got a neighborhood called Pelon. See, because the Nation of Gods and Earths and the 5 percenters are an offshoot of the Nation of Islam. Even though they may disagree on certain things, but the Nation of Gods of Earth and the 5 percenters are offshoot of the NOI. See? Then they went to an isle in the Aegean Sea called Pelon, which Elijah Muhammad identifies as modern day what? Patmos. Now, where do you get the concept of Patmos at? You gonna get that from the Bible. Yaqub, and see, the character of Yaqub is really who? Jacob in the Bible. That's who it is. So what is Marquett talking about? This is not a man of integrity. This is not a man of honor. This man created a false religion. Yaqub developed Christian. It says Yaqub developed Christianity to fool black people. No, he didn't, brothers and sisters. Christianity was created by the Roman Catholic Church. That's who created Christianity. But the Roman Catholics, they will sit up here and say that religion was created by the Israelites. No, it wasn't. Acts the 11th chapter, when it talks about they became Christians at Antioch, that should not even be in the Bible. It's because the Israelites did not create Christianity. See? But now they saying Yaqub created Christianity. There's no history that says this. Yaqub developed Christianity to fool the black people into supporting him and to trick them into knowing their true history. No, it says, and to trick them into not knowing their true history. So now Yaqub created the white race, and then when he creates the white race, now, he's creating Christianity too. Come on, brothers. See, that's what I'm saying. Once there, he established the deposit regime, starting to breed out the black traits of his followers. This entailed breeding new children, with those who were too dark being killed at birth and their bodies being fed to wild animals or incinerated. Yaqub died at the age of 150, but his followers carried on his work as he passed down his knowledge. After 600 years, the white race was created. All races other than the black race were byproducts of Yaqub's work as the red, yellow, and brown races. So now they saying Yaqub created, quote unquote, the white race. And from the yellow, the white. The brutal conditions of their creation determined the evil nature of the new race. By lying to the black mother of the baby, this lie was born into the very nature of the white baby. And murder for black people were also born in them, or made by nature a liar and murderer. As a group of people distinct from the original Asiatic race, the white race are bereft of dignity, being intrinsically prone to lying, violence, and brutality. According to the nation's teaching, Yaqub, newly created white race, sowed discord among the black race, and thus were exiled to live in caves of Europe, West Asia. In a narrative, it was in Europe that the white race engaged in bestiality and degenerated, losing everything except their language. They were kept in Europe by guards. Elijah Muhammad also asserted that some of the new white race tried to become black, but failed as a result, but became gorillas and monkeys. Let me read that over. Elijah Muhammad also asserted that some of the new white race tried to become black but failed, as a result became gorillas and monkeys. See, all of this stuff, this this is all lies. See, now you can go back and read a lot of this stuff, right? I'm gonna go over a lot of this stuff because I'm gonna talk about this bad self. But when he talks about how Malcolm X, uh, basically Malcolm X was a traitor, and he was a person that destroyed the black movement and all this. Malcolm X did not destroy anything. So another thing he says that, if it wasn't for Elijah Muhammad, Malcolm X would be basically in the dumpster. And to a certain degree, I can understand where he's coming from, but we just read this long article about the teachings that Malcolm X received from Elijah Muhammad. So Malcolm X, according to the history, Muhammad taught Elijah, and Elijah taught the quote unquote black community, right? But look how many people he brainwashed with this ideology. There's no such thing as a tribe of Shabazz. Ain't no such thing as that. Them people didn't come from the moon. See, they didn't come from the moon, brothers and sisters. So that's not a man of integrity, brothers and sisters. This is a man that created a religion to do what? Brainwash his own people. This is what he did. We're reading this. Let's read a little bit more, then we're going to go into some of the things that he was saying. Or maybe I'll continue to read it while I talk about other things, right? So it says to help the whites develop, the ruling Allah then sent prophets to them. Now, according to Islamic traditions, the Arabs, or Muhammad and all them, they didn't believe in nothing like this. This is why, I know a brother personally. He's from Qatar, right? And he questioned a lot of things that Farrakhan was teaching, because the original form of Islam that was created by Muhammad, right? They didn't teach nothing like this. So what is they talking about? They believe in Allah. The Quran don't even teach this. This is all they're doing, right? And I believe that they created their own thing like that is because you had Arabs too that back then and today they don't respect black people. See? So a lot of this stuff that they was doing, it was built out of racism that was going on in this country dealing with our people. But just because they created this, that don't mean that it's right. It says to help the whites develop, the ruling Allah then sent prophets to them, the first of whom was Musa, quote unquote Moses, who taught whites to cook and wear clothes. So now they saying Moses was a part of this. Because they come on earth about 6,000 something years, all this type of stuff. So they taught Moses this stuff. Moses, he taught the white people. Moses tried to civilize them, but eventually gave up and blew up 300 of the most troublesome white people with dynamite. Now, where he get that dynamite from? Where did he get the dynamite from? According to the nation, Jesus was also a prophet sent to try to civilize white folks. However, The whites had learned to use technology, a plan to use their trickery and lack of empathy and emotion to exert power and enslave the black population, bringing the first slaves to America. According to NOI doctrine, Yakub progeny were destined to rule 6,000 years before the original black people of the world regained dominance. The end of which was the year 1940. Why are they talking like this? It's because they're going into the Bible. See, that's why they talking like this. It's because the end of this, because they in the Bible, the end of the Gentile rule is around 1913. See, when was that? That's around the First World War. See? Another thing that he said too that was tripped out was that what did Malcolm X build? First of all, Malcolm X built, he was one of the pioneers or the builders of the nation of Israel. Why you say that, Yahshua? Is because when he came out of prison in 1952, the Nation of Islam, according to their words, there was only about maybe 700 members or 300 or something like that. It wasn't even that many members. Malcolm X said that because he was brainwashed by this man and his teachings. And look, it clamped that man up. See, I'm not going to take nothing. It clamped that man up. But the basis of the teachings, what we just read in this article, is false, y'all. It's false. There's no such thing as no Yakub. See? So he went from that point on, from 1952 up until the time that he started to have rumblings with them. He built that situation. Malcolm X was so much of a prominent leader in the Nation of Islam. They said, this is according to the members, Malcolm X had New York and Elijah had what? Chicago. This is how powerful. So when he talk about that the man was not an organizer and things of this nature, if Malcolm X was not an organizer, right? Why would Elijah have Malcolm X and Jeremiah Shabazz or X? I forgot his last name, but they had a business venture out there in North Carolina. They was trying to get land out there in North Carolina. So they had to do business with the KKK, which Malcolm X disagreed with because they had a big old speech on the stage. It was supposed to be like some type of WWF where they gonna debate each other and all this type of stuff. They had to do that because the racist crackers that was living down there in the South, they wouldn't allow them pretty much entry in North Carolina if they didn't go by their rules. Malcolm X hated that because it made them look like clowns. See? So if he's not a man that can organize, then why would Elijah send him there with Jeremiah? Well, why couldn't he organize when he left the nation, when he was kicked out? Because they wouldn't allow him to organize. Because every time Malcolm X tried to organize something, he was heavily under attack by the Nation of Islam and the U.S. government. When he went to Mecca to do his Hajj, when he went to Mecca to do his pilgrimage, right? And he wasn't just there to do all that. He was there doing business in terms of trying to get the black struggle worldwide, he was talking to heads of Africa and people of the Islamic faith. He was talking to all those people so that he can organize with those people. What happened to him in Egypt? If he wasn't so much of an organizer, what happened to him in Egypt? He got poisoned. They tried to kill him in Egypt. Then they had to pump his stomach. He came over here to America. He came back to America. And then Marquett line say, then when he came back to America, he had this big euphoria about white people. No, he didn't. See? He said that the white people out there that follow Islam, they was different from the white people that lived in America. That's what he said. He probably ain't said that verbatim, but that's really what he was saying. He also said that Islam can save basically anybody. That's what he said. And then the people, they asked him, did he still have the ideology of creating gun organization and stuff like that? And he said, yeah. And they replied and say, well, you still follow the same things that you fought, because they were hypocrites. He didn't have no euphoria about Caucasians, but he did have a different perspective. It's because he was brainwashed in the cult of Islam. See, he couldn't think for himself. If you go back to his original videos when he was on these different shows, if he's so much of a stupid person, why is he the lead speaker? He's the lead speaker for the Nation of Islam. He's the lead speaker, right? Everything that he said before he say something, he will put Elijah Muhammad's name up in there, because that's how much he loved that man. Then they made a statement and say, well, he tried to get back into the Nation of Islam and stuff like that. Of course he did. You know why? It's because he built that. He built that. A lot of the stuff that they were doing were some of the things that he constructed himself. See? He's one of the ones, right, under the leadership of Elijah Muhammad. They brought business to the situation. So he had a lot of stuff going on in that situation. Now, he talked about how he basically was stupid for talking about President Kennedy and things of this nature. The reason why he did that anyway is because Malcom X had become disgruntled with the Nation of Islam, because Elijah Muhammad, just like any other big time preacher, he was taking all that money, and a lot of the people, the only people that was really eating in the Nation of Islam really truly was the people in his circle. See, a lot of them other folks, man, them people were slaves, man. And Malcom X became disgruntled. And then Malcom X got the information from Elijah's son, Warwick D. Muhammad. Warwick D. told Malcom X that Elijah Muhammad was messing around with his secretaries, whether they was teenagers or not. That's what he was doing. And then another thing too, Malcom X say that he's to come to Chicago and drop off that currency, and he would see these women banging at the door. Malcolm X also probably became disgruntled when he started to find that stuff out because Malcolm X didn't want to believe that he was doing it. And then also, Malcolm X, see his brother was messing with a female that he wasn't married to. According to the Nation of Islam bylaws, is that you gotta marry a woman before you sleep with her. So his brother was kicked out of the nation for that situation. But Elijah Muhammad was sleeping with those women. He didn't marry those women. When he was sleeping with those women, they became pregnant. He silenced those women. And according to Malcolm X, he took them out of the jobs that they had. They probably put them off somewhere and stuff like that, but he wasn't really taking care of those women. That's why they became disgruntled. But they so brainwashed too. I think it was in the 80s where Farrakhan had a discussion. I think it was Savior's Day or something like that, and he brought those women out. And see, Farrakhan, he was one of the major ones that was saying a lot of stuff about Malcolm X just as well. It's because he wanted the spot that Malcolm X had. Because Malcolm X, he the one that taught Farrakhan. And then he started talking about Muhammad Ali and all this. Elijah gave Muhammad Ali his name. So what? Who brought him to the organization? It was Malcolm X. Malcolm X was the major guy in the Nation of Islam. Elijah Muhammad wasn't a great speaker. He wasn't a great speaker. And also he suffered from I think bronchitis. But he wasn't a good speaker like Malcolm X. That's why Malcolm X, once he started to develop and become a prominent speaker, he was the major speaker. What is this guy talking about? Malcolm X, if you're gonna talk about him being in the Nation of Islam, he was the golden goose. That's what he was. And a lot of those guys, man, they were hypocrites, man. They was going around, they was extorting drug dealers, they were murdering drug dealers, all type of stuff they was doing back in the day. But dealing with the situation with the kids and stuff like that, he was a hypocrite. Malcolm X and people in the organization said that he did not want Malcolm X to know about his misgivings. He ain't want that man to know about that. Is because why? The man was raking in money. He talking about he wasn't no organizer. But the reason why people say stuff like that is because, our people, we have always had a love affair in this country with the devils amongst us. We do it with religion. People sell drugs. We will defend these people. And when you got the common man that's trying to do the right thing, they gonna stump him in the head. And this is what this brother is doing. Let's look at some more of this stuff. It says the Nuwapian version. An alternate version of the story was told by Nuwapian Nation, a black supremacist new religious movement run by Dwight York, which is Malcom Z. York. This is a set out in a roughly 1,700-page book called The Holy Tablets and the Nuwapian telling of Yaqub myth, 17 million years before the first of many intergalactic battles. The ancestors of black people given a variety of names, including Rizziquins were gods, but subservient to the supreme god. Rizziquins, if I'm pronouncing it right, lived in another galaxy on a planet known as Risk, which was located in the original trisolar system, which featured a movable throne spaceship Nibiru. In their telling, the original protective atmospheric layer of this planet, necessarily to protect from the UV rays of its three suns, had been destroyed by an evil being who was the leader of the fallen angels, Shaitan. Shaitan has been asked by the supreme God to move either off the planet entirely or to a different location on it. He refused and instead set off an atomic explosion like an H bomb. Where is he getting this from? He's getting this from the NOI. That's where, because he was a part of that. Destroying a part of the atmospheric. The scientists of the planet were able to repair it with gold, but there wasn't enough gold on the planet, necessitating excursion into space on Nibiru to mine gold from planet Earth, where colonies were established. Rizzicrians did not want to mine gold, believing it was beneath their status as angels. They spliced genes of Homo erectus with their own genomes, producing mankind to do do it for them. Humans originally had various psychic ability, but after wars and Cain and Abel, the gland responsible for these psychic powers were removed from the human brain by the Rizzicrians. Yakub was born with two brains. The Nuwapian explanation of the size of his large head, making him a genius capable of gene splicing experiments, which resulted in white people. After his experiments were finished, one of his brains exploded, resulting in his death. So this stuff comes from Fard Muhammad. See? The photo of Wallace Fard Muhammad, the founder of the Nation of Islam, explaining the beliefs of the group, explaining the beliefs of the group to the police following his arrest for a crime committed by a member of the NOI. See? So, what else he was talking about, Malcolm X? I pretty much covered a lot of things, you know, from him. See, another thing too, Malcolm X, when you had like the civil rights movement, Malcolm X, you know, he challenged Martin Luther King and a lot of those Christian brothers and stuff like that. But you know, Malcolm X, he wanted to get involved in the black struggle. Elijah Muhammad didn't want to do it because, you know, according to them, they look at the black community as 85 percenters. That's why, you know, you got the 5% nation, right? but a lot of their stuff comes out of the NOI. So like a lot of times our people, because we don't know who we are from a nationalistic standpoint of view, we caught up into the wows of America, right? So they looked at them as 85ers, right? Meaning that they were deaf, dumb, and blind. And that the Nation of Islam was the 5%. So the 5% don't deal with the deaf, dumb, and blind. This is some of the stuff that he was taught in the NOI. But Malcolm X didn't want to hear that. See, Malcolm X loved his people. Even though Malcolm X was brainwashed with the philosophy of Islam, but he still had a genuine love for his people. And even in the Nation of Islam, you had a lot of people that hated Malcolm X. It's because he didn't allow them to do a lot of things that they wanted to do in the nation. Who was the people that killed Malcolm X? The people that killed Malcolm X were members of the NOI. I mean the FOI, the Fruits of Islam. They were members of that. And show you how devilish the NOI was, they framed two of their members with a killing that they didn't even do. They didn't even kill Malcolm X. Khalil Islam, and there was another guy. They went to jail for 20, almost 30 years for the murder of Malcolm X. And you had people like Farrakhan, Elijah Muhammad, you had the ministers and stuff. They knew that some of their members from the NOI killed Malcolm X, and they allowed the police department to put it on those two individuals, even though they wanted to kill Malcolm X too, but they didn't kill him. See, Khalil Islam, when Malcolm X before his last days, I think 1968, no, 65, I believe, but his last days, Khalil Islam was scoping out the Audubon ballroom, see, for the Nation of Islam, because they joined forces with the U.S. government. And even if they didn't join forces, right, they wanted to kill Malcolm X. They wanted to kill him because they looked at him as a traitor. But he wasn't a traitor. Actually, in actuality, they were the traitors. It's because they was using black people to rake in money and to control different areas in the black community. This is what they were doing. So in actuality, they were the traitors, brothers and sisters. They destroyed the movement because they had become big-headed. I'm talking about the leadership, not the masses. The leadership became big-headed. They had all this money, right? And they started to misuse their own people. That's why they had to get Malcolm X out of the Nation of Islam when he started to like question certain things, and he started to come against a lot of the stuff that was going on in the nation, brothers and sisters. And let me hit you with something. They're not even a nation. They're just a Masonic religious cult that was established, right? I think I'm gonna say the 1940s. I think some around that time, right? But yeah, it was a cult, brothers and sisters, and it still is even to this day. Because if you're still teaching, and look at Farrakhan. Farrakhan is another one. As good as the brother can speak, he's very articulate, well read, right? He's an articulate brother. You listen to him speak, he's a dynamic speaker, right? But Farrakhan, he's a false prophet. It's because he's running around. This man told his congregation that he got on the spaceship, and when he got on the spaceship, he saw something that resembled Elijah Muhammad. Come on, man. That's ball game, man. That ball game. And even some of his members, because the Nation of Islam is they split amongst each other. You got some of them, they get into it with each other. Some of the members will tell you that Farrakhan is lying. He's lying. He didn't get on no big mothership. See? So, brothers and sisters, I hope you got something out of the discussion, man. I can go on, but I pretty much, laid out a lot of stuff, and I'm going to revisit this stuff too, man. Because this stuff is deep.